Dark on Twitter for a good 24 hours. He tweeted that Comey is a leaker. That is a statement that he said in that tweet earlier this morning. Despite so many false statements and lies, total and complete vindication, the president tweeted. And wow, Comey is a leaker. That gleeful tweet from the president basically echoes what his legal team was saying yesterday in response to the testimony from the former FBI director. Mark Kasowitz is now casting the former FBI director as a leaker after he admitted in that testimony to the Senate Intelligence Committee that he did orchestrate the release of his memos to that Columbia law professor. It was shortly after that Kasowitz gave that statement to the press and accused the former FBI director of leaking that information. Of course, it's not classified information. It's his own personal memo. He's not an employee of the federal government anymore, and he was not being blocked by executive privilege. And so there are going to be some legal experts who say this was not a leaking of classified information by any stretch. But Mark Kasowitz making it clear this morning, Wolf, that he is going to file a legal complaint against the former FBI director. He's going to file that complaint with the Office of Inspector General over at the Department of Justice, also with the Senate Judiciary Committee, again trying to make this case that Comey improperly released that information about the president. And of course, we're going to hear from the president about an hour and a half from now in the Rose Garden. As you said, he's going to be appearing at that joint press conference with the leader from Romania. And there are many the fate of his attorney general, Jeff Sessions. Sure, he has confidence, the White House says, in the attorney general. But is Jeff Sessions built to last? Is he going to last in that role? How much longer is that going to happen? And I suspect the president may be asked about something about that as well. And just the overall thrust of James Comey's comments yesterday, Wolf, in that hearing. It is incredible to hear a former FBI director repeatedly accuse the president of the United States of being a liar, of lying about this and lying about that. You would think that that would get the president's dander up, and that would have prompted him to tweet something in response yesterday. He didn't. The president did not take that bait. So the question becomes, does he do that later on at this press conference this afternoon? He was pretty restrained over this whole period of the Comey testimony. Not a lot of tweets, just that tweet earlier this morning. And this White House was pretty restrained as well, keeping the president sort of away from the TVs. He had meetings and so forth. So it'll be interesting to see what the president's posture is at this news conference coming up, Wolf.
Yeah, it was interesting. He let his private outside attorney speak for him yesterday. And remember that Comey's testimony was under oath if he was lying, repeatedly calling the president of the United States a liar. If he was lying, that's perjury. That's a crime. He could go to jail for that. Shimon, next week we're going to hear from the Attorney General of the United States, Jeff Sessions. He's going to face questions up on Capitol Hill. The topic is the budget, but he'll surely be asked about what we heard from James Comey yesterday during those hearings. There are other questions about Sessions as well involved in the Russia investigation. What's the latest you're hearing?
Well, that's right, Wolf. We fully expect him to be questioned about some of his contacts with Russians. Sessions has certainly been in the news quite a bit concerning whether or not he had additional contacts with any Russians, specifically the Russian ambassador, Sergei Kislyak. It's been sort of a topic that has been ongoing. We know that the FBI, and based on what the former director did yesterday at his testimony, he would not discuss certain information that the FBI knows about. It's intelligence that they've gathered during the course of this investigation that hasn't necessarily been corroborated, but there is some intelligence that suggests that the Russians were talking about Sessions, and perhaps there was a suggestion by the Russians that Kislyak may have had another meeting with Sessions. That information has not been corroborated by the FBI. They have not necessarily ruled it out, and our understanding is that they're still looking at it. The Department of Justice and Sessions have denied there were any additional meetings. This meeting in particular happened over a year ago at the Mayflower Hotel in D.C., where Trump was giving a speech, and Kislyak was attending. There may have been some contact. It kind of was on the side. But the Department of Justice and really the Attorney General have denied there have been any additional meetings. You know, the FBI has not really talked about this publicly. It was really telling and interesting when the former director, Comey, yesterday was asked about Sessions. He kept saying there were other reasons why he felt Sessions would have to be recused from the Russia investigation, which he eventually was, but he would not go into those reasons. And he did. We were told yesterday, you know, CNN's Manu Raju was told yesterday that in the closed session, Comey did talk about some of these other concerns, and one of it was this intelligence, this other information about a possible meeting or some contact at the Mayflower Hotel, Wolf.
Yeah, it's also very, very intriguing. The president's aides, the president's spokespeople, they continue to refuse to say whether the president has confidence in the Attorney General. Right. Yesterday, Deputy Press Secretary would only say the president has confidence in his cabinet, but press repeatedly on Sessions. They won't say that. We'll see if the president is asked that at the news conference later today. Phil, what's the latest up on Capitol Hill as far as the investigations are concerned and the reaction to Comey's testimony?
I think on the reaction front, what's been most interesting, Wolf, is kind of how Republicans have tried to play this. They've said there was nothing new, there were no big surprises, and they've also said in multiple occasions from multiple senators and members of the House, maybe the president just didn't know any better. Take a listen to what Senate Intelligence Committee member Susan Collins had to say.
The first interaction that the president had with Mr. Comey in early January at Trump Towers, it was the FBI director who cleared the room so that he could have a one-on-one discussion with the president about that salacious dossier. And I wonder if perhaps that made the president think that whenever there's a sensitive conversation to be had with the FBI director, that it should be one-on-one.
Now, Wolf, it's worth noting that the president has a White House counsel's office, a White House counsel, and a staff that should probably be the people that would inform him what he should or shouldn't do if he's unaware of that. So that puts a hole in it a little bit. But I think the interesting element here, Wolf, is as much as yesterday seemed like a climax, when it comes to the investigations here on Capitol Hill, it's not. As you noted with Shimon, obviously Jeff Sessions will be testifying up on Capitol Hill on a separate matter next week. You also have Bob Mueller, the chief counsel, or the special counsel. He will be meeting with the top two members of the Senate Intelligence Committee behind closed doors next week to talk about their investigations, make sure they don't run into each other. And then you have Jared Kushner, as you noted. He, as soon as next week, will be meeting with staff on the Senate Intelligence Committee. After that meeting, he was expected, according to sources, to be submitting documents and then meeting with senators. So the idea that yesterday was kind of the end game or there was large-scale vindication, anything like that, if you talk to people up on Capitol Hill, they make very clear they are still at the early stages of their investigation. There are still a lot of issues that they plan to take on going forward, and there is no really kind of end in sight to things as they move forward on those probes, Wolf.
Yeah, it seems to be expanding as we speak. Phil Mattingly, Jim Acosta, Shimon Prokopez, guys, thanks very much. Let's get some perspective on all of this, the Russia investigations, the Comey testimony. Democratic Senator Jack Reed of Rhode Island is joining us. Senator, thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks, Wolf.
You had a chance to question Comey yesterday. The president is claiming what he calls total and complete vindication. You agree with the president?
No, not at all. I think Director Comey made a strong impression. As you noted, he did so under oath. The president, I think, if he's willing to insist upon his position, that should also be made under oath, not through an attorney or through tweets. I think Comey was very compelling. I think both my colleagues on both sides of the aisle thought so. He was open. He answered all the questions. So I think, frankly, the burden is now on the president to come forth definitively and say what happened.
Well, there's a few ways he could do it. What you're saying is he should make a statement under oath where at the White House, come up to Capitol Hill and say that Comey was lying as far as the loyalty issue and the Michael Flynn issue was concerned, because that's what his lawyers said yesterday. Well, you want him to raise his hand and take that oath and make that statement?
I think that's ultimately what will happen, because in the course of these investigations, particularly with Special Prosecutor Mueller, since part of this, as was indicated yesterday, goes to the rationale behind the firing of Mr. Comey and the rationale of trying to deflect, if not stop, the investigation of General Flynn, involves in some degree the president. So I would expect at some point, not right away, but at some point that Mr. Mueller would feel he has to depose the president.
So that would be the special counsel deposing the president under oath. We'll see if that actually winds up happening. The other way this could be resolved, the he said versus he said, one is lying, the other is lying, is if there are tapes in the White House of those conversations he had with Comey. First of all, do you know if there are tapes?
I don't know if there are tapes, but there are only three, in my view, logical conclusions. There are tapes, and they confirm what Mr. Comey said. There are no tapes, and so the president is misleading in his statement. Or there are tapes that refute Comey. If that was the case, I think those tapes would be public already.
So you're saying your conclusion is
either there's no tapes, or those tapes do not help the president's position.
Because the president, in that tweet weeks ago, he raised the possibility of tapes. He put the word tapes in quotes.
Right, and that could be, I think, just simply a misstatement.
Let me play this clip for you. This is Comey during the testimony talking about the president's sort of hope. He used the word hope. I hope you can walk away or leave the investigation to Michael Flynn, his fired national security advisor, alone. Listen to this.
I don't think it's for me to say whether the conversation I had with the president was an effort to obstruct. I took it as a very disturbing thing, very concerning, but that's a conclusion I'm sure the special counsel will work towards to try and understand what the intention was there and whether that's an offense.
First of all, do you know if the special counsel is now investigating the president for obstruction of justice? Because that's the implication of what Comey was saying yesterday.
I have not had the opportunity to talk with the special counsel or his staff. As is indicated by your colleagues, he will meet with Senator Warner and Senator Burr this week and talk about the
chairman and the vice chairman of the Intelligence Committee.
My sense is that this is all part of a very elaborate, intricate situation involving not only what he said to Director Comey, but also there have been public reports, and we've actually questioned Director of National Intelligence Coates and Admiral Rogers of the NSA about reports that he in fact asked them to take steps that would either publicly exonerate him or in some way influence the FBI. So all these incidents are suggesting not just one incident with Comey, but a pattern of behavior which goes to the president's possible abuse of power by trying to stop a legitimate investigation.
And you know that the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, will testify before the Senate next week on budget-related issues, but you know there are going to be a lot of questions on all of this.
It's a very loose budget-related issues.
Very loose budget-related issues, but the senators can ask whatever they want. I know you were I assume you went to that closed-door meeting after the open session yesterday.
I was there for part of it.
Because you saw the report, CNN reporting, that Comey suggested, well, there may have been a third undisclosed meeting with the Russian ambassador that Sessions had. They're still trying to figure that out. What can you tell us about that?
It's not appropriate to comment on anything that took place in that closed-door session. I grew up in the Army. You don't talk about those.
You don't want to talk about...
No, sir.
But I don't know if that's classified, but it was closed door.
It was closed door.
Yeah, but it was definitely closed door. I don't know if it was classified. Without telling us any classified information, was there a bombshell that you learned during that one-hour private meeting?
Again, I would prefer not to. I think the best approach is that there was an open session. I thought Director Comey was incredibly candid, responded to every question, responded in a very thoughtful, complete way, and then there were matters that should be considered behind closed doors, regardless of whether they're classified or technically not classified. I think going in that direction is not the appropriate way.
Someone is lying here, right?
Someone is not accurate.
You're very diplomatic.
Thank you.
Senator Jack Reed of Rhode Island. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Coming up, we're learning new details about the former FBI Director Comey's closed testimony, what he said, and why the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, is pushing back. Plus, why many are now calling for